After my son stopped speaking to me, I spent 3 years learning how to live as if I no longer had a son. I won't say it was easy. Sometimes I would still dial his number automatically, then stare at the screen and remember that calling was pointless. Sometimes I would open the mailbox and, for a few seconds, hope to see his name. Sometimes, in the evenings, I imagined I would hear a knock at the door. He would walk in, toss his keys onto the table, and say in that familiar, irritated voice, "Dad, you're making everything complicated again." But 3 years passed, and the door never opened. So on the morning of my 63rd birthday, I wasn't expecting anything. No congratulations. No phone call. No miracle. I woke up at 5:20 a.m., just as I had for the past 30 years. It was a habit left over from my career. For 27 years, I had worked as a police officer in the small town of Haven Ridge, Oregon. I started as a patrol officer, then became a detective, and spent my final 8 years heading the investigations division. My wife Linda used to say I could wake up before the alarm even rang. "You're allergic to normal life, Jack," she would joke. Linda had been gone for 6 years. After she died, birthdays lost all meaning for me. She used to get up before I did, make coffee, bake an apple pie. Then, when I came downstairs, she would pretend she had forgotten my birthday. "Oh, Jack, is there something important about today?" I would pretend to believe her. She would laugh. Now the kitchen was quiet. I made coffee, opened the refrigerator, and looked at the clock. 6:42. I was about to go for a walk when the doorbell rang at 7:03. I froze. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the window and looked outside first. The mail carrier was standing on the porch. He had left a large rectangular box near the door and was already walking back toward his truck. I stepped outside. My name was on the box, Jack Harrison. The address was correct too. There was no return address, only a shipping stamp from Seattle. I frowned. 3 years ago, my son Nathan had moved there, and since then, he had almost completely disappeared from my life. I carried the box inside. It was surprisingly heavy. Inside, surrounded by thick foam padding, was a bottle. Crystal glass. Black label. The name read, Royal Crown Reserve, 1961. I wasn't an expert on alcohol, but even I knew the bottle was expensive. Very expensive. Attached to it was a small white card. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Nathan's handwriting. It said, "Happy birthday, Dad. I know too much time has passed. I hope this gift can be the beginning of something again." I read the note 3 times. Then I put it on the table and looked at the bottle. Nathan had never given expensive gifts. When he was 28, he once called me late at night and asked for $2,000 because his business was temporarily having problems. I gave him the money. He promised to pay me back within a month. He never did. A year later, I learned the money hadn't gone toward his business. He had gambled some of it away. I gave him a serious talk. He said, "You always think you know what's best for me." I answered, "No. I just don't want to bury my own son someday." After that, our relationship began to fall apart. Then Nathan moved away. At first, he called every few weeks. Then, once every few months. Then not at all. And now, this bottle worth several $1,000s. On my birthday. Without a phone call. Without an explanation, just a note. I walked over to the bottle and touched the cold glass. That was when I felt it. Not emotion. Instinct. The same instinct that had once kept me alive. Working as a detective had taught me one thing. When something looks too good to be true, first ask yourself why. I didn't open the bottle. Instead, I took out my phone and called Michael Reeves. Michael was my attorney. But to me, he was more than an attorney. We had met back when he worked as a legal consultant for the police department. He was one of the few people I trusted without question. "Happy birthday, old man," he said when he answered. "Thanks. Where's the cake?" "No cake." "Then at least tell me you have whiskey." I looked at the bottle. That's actually why I'm calling. 40 minutes later, I was driving to his office. The bottle was sitting on the passenger seat. I couldn't take my eyes off it. One question kept running through my head. Why now? When I entered Michael's office, he looked up from his computer. Good Lord, Jack. You look like you're here to tell me about a crime. I put the bottle on his desk. Maybe I am. He looked at the bottle, then at me. From whom? Nathan. His smile disappeared. You talked to him? No. Then why did he send you this? I don't know. Michael opened the packaging. You drink it? No. Why not? Because I don't trust gifts that appear after 3 years of silence. He smiled, still a detective. There are no former detectives. Michael poured himself a very small amount. I'll try it. I wanted to stop him, but I didn't get the chance. He took a small sip. Not bad. He looked at the bottle. Actually, very good. I sat across from him. Michael, I want to review my will. His smile disappeared completely. Why? I just want to make sure everything is in order. Do you have a reason? I looked at him. Nathan. Michael silently turned back to his computer. He opened my estate file. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then his face changed. What? He scrolled down. Jack. What happened? He turned the monitor toward me. I saw the document, Last Will and Testament of Jack Harrison. The date was about a month earlier. I read the first page, then the second. On the third page it stated that all of my assets after my death were to go to my son Nathan Harrison. Everything, the house, my savings, my investment account, the insurance payout, and my small piece of land. I stared at the screen. I didn't sign this. Michael slowly nodded. I know. Then what is it? He opened the changelog. This is the version that appeared in the system 4 weeks ago. Who uploaded it? Let's see. He began checking the records. A few seconds later he said, Jack. What? The file was uploaded using my legal firm's account. So, someone logged into the system using my credentials. I stood up. Are you sure? Absolutely. He kept checking. There is something else. What? I received an email from you. When? 3 weeks ago. He opened it. The email appeared to come from me. It instructed him to make changes to my will. The message had been sent from an address almost identical to mine. But not mine. Michael looked at me. It's forged. I said nothing, neither did he. The room became painfully quiet. Michael, I finally said, you just drank from that bottle. Yes. If I'm right. He looked at the bottle. Then we have a problem. A few minutes later, he began feeling sick. At first he said he was dizzy, then he put the glass down. Something's wrong. I stood up. Michael? He took one step backward. His hand grabbed the edge of the desk. Jack. Then he collapsed. I called an ambulance. 20 minutes later, they took him away. I followed them to the hospital. The doctors wouldn't let me into his room. About an hour later, a female doctor approached me. Are you family? No, I'm his friend. Then I need to tell you that his condition is critical. What happened? We suspect poisoning. My mouth went dry. Poisoning? Were you drinking the same thing? No. Why not? Because I didn't drink from the bottle. At that moment, a police officer appeared in the hallway. I recognized him. Officer Robert Kane. He looked at me. Jack? Yes. We need to talk. We stepped aside. You brought the bottle? Yes. Did you know there might be poison in it? No. Who else had access to it? Only my attorney. He wrote something in his notebook. You understand that right now you're one of the people we have to investigate? I understand. Then don't leave town. I nodded. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table. In front of me was a copy of the forged will. Beside it was a photograph of Nathan that I had kept on the refrigerator for years. I stared at it. A boy of about 9, smiling, holding an enormous fish. I remembered that day. He had said, Dad, I caught it myself. Of course, I had pulled half the fish out of the water. But I had let him believe he had done it. I closed my eyes. Then the phone rang. 11:18 p.m. Unknown number. I answered. Yes. For several seconds, there was silence. Then I heard his voice. Dad, Nathan. I said nothing. Did you get the gift? Yes. Did you like it? I didn't drink it. Silence. A very short silence. But I heard it. Why? Heart problems. He exhaled. So what did you do with the bottle? I deliberately waited. Gave it to Michael. Silence. Not normal silence. Frightened silence. You gave it to whom? Michael Reeves. He said nothing. I added. Nathan. He suddenly asked, did he drink it? That was when I knew. He didn't ask whether I liked the gift. He didn't ask why I hadn't drunk it. He didn't ask how I felt. He immediately asked whether Michael had drunk it. Yes, I said. Nathan hung up. I stared at the phone. My heart was pounding. I immediately called Robert Kane. He called, I said. Who? My son. What did he say? I told him everything. Kane asked me to preserve the recording. My phone automatically recorded calls. I sent him the file. An hour later he called back. Jack, don't talk to him again without us, understood? And one more thing. What? You said you take heart medication? Yes. Check your medication. I froze. What? Check your pills. I looked at the bottles sitting beside the coffee maker. It had been there for months. I opened it. The pills looked completely normal, but the next morning, I took them to my doctor. Dr. Stevenson ran tests. 2 hours later he called me. His voice was serious. Jack, you need to come in immediately. I went there. He placed a laboratory report in front of me. This isn't your medication. I didn't understand. What do you mean? The bottle contains a different type of pill. What do? They can cause a severe drop in blood pressure. How dangerous is that? He looked directly into my eyes. For someone with your heart condition, potentially fatal, my hands went cold. If I had taken them during an attack? He paused. You might not have had enough time to call for help. I took the bottle. On the drive home, I pulled over. I sat there with my hands on the steering wheel. Now I had 3 facts: a forged will, a poisoned bottle, tampered medication, and one person connected to all 3. My son. I took out my old police notebook. On the first page I wrote, Nathan. Underneath, birthday, gift, forged will, medication. Then I wrote, motive? I stared at that word for a long time. Money. There was no other explanation, but I didn't yet know how far it had gone. The next day, I installed a new security system. Cameras. Sensors. Door alarms. I checked every window. Locked the garage. I even set up an old detective's trick. A thin piece of fishing line between the door and the frame. If someone opened the door during the night, the line would snap. Simple, but effective. The next morning, the line was broken. The porch camera had been turned away. Someone had been inside my house. I immediately called Kane. He arrived 20 minutes later. He examined the door. Almost no evidence. Then someone knew what they were doing. Or someone who knew what to look for. I looked at him. What now? We wait for a mistake. But the mistake came sooner than we expected. The next day, I found a white envelope on my porch. Inside was a photograph of my house. Taken at night. On the back was written, 116. No words. Just the photograph. I showed it to Kane. He looked at it. This is a warning. I know. Or an attempt to scare you. That works too. Kane looked at me. Jack, you need to leave town temporarily. No. Why? Because if I leave, they'll know I'm afraid. You are afraid. I looked him directly in the eyes. Of course I am. Then I added, but fear doesn't mean I'm going to hand them my house. That evening, I had a heart attack. A real one. I was sitting in the living room when the pain suddenly hit my chest. I grabbed my heart. My left arm went numb. I automatically reached for my medication and stopped. The bottle was in my hand. I looked at it. If I hadn't checked those pills earlier, I called an ambulance. 10 minutes later, paramedics arrived. They gave me verified medication. The pain gradually eased, but that night I realized how close I had come to dying. Around 2 in the morning, I woke up and heard something, footsteps. Inside my house, I lay completely still. Another step. Then the floor creaked. I slowly got up. An old revolver from my police days was in the nightstand. I took it. Walked out of the bedroom. A weak light from the street illuminated the living room. A man was sitting on my couch, mid-40s. Leather jacket. Short hair. He calmly raised his hands. "Don't shoot, Jack." "Who are you?" "My name is Marco DeLuca." "How did you get in?" "Through the window." "Why?" "Because I came to talk." "I don't care." I kept the gun pointed at him. "You know this is illegal?" He smiled. "I think tonight, we both have more important problems than the law." I didn't lower the weapon. "You work for Nathan?" He looked at me. "Yes." "Then are you here to kill me?" "No." I was surprised. "Why?" "Because I'm not a killer. Then why are you here?" He sighed. "Because your son got involved with the wrong people." He told me everything. Nathan owed a large amount of money to a group involved in illegal gambling. About $400,000. He had lost money. Then borrowed more, then lost that too. When the creditors demanded payment, Nathan offered them another option. My life insurance policy. $500,000. Marco pulled a copy from his pocket. I read it. It was real. The beneficiary was Nathan. I looked at Marco. "When did this happen?" "About 2 months ago." "Why are you telling me?" He shrugged. "Because I don't like killing old men." "Very noble." "I'm serious." He stood. "Your son decided that if you died naturally, nobody would notice." I felt cold inside. "So the alcohol?" "Yes." "The medication?" "Yes." "The will?" "To make sure everything went to him after your death." "And Michael?" Marco looked down. "That was a mistake." "What?" "He was supposed to drink less, but Nathan expected your lawyer to die, and then he thought you'd be too frightened to investigate." I clenched my jaw. "So he tried to kill my friend?" "Yes." Marco headed toward the window. "I'm leaving." "Wait." He stopped. "Why are you telling me all this?" He looked at me. "Because I've seen too many people start with debt and end with bodies." Then he disappeared through the window. I immediately called Kane. We found Marco 2 days later. But before that happened, my granddaughter called me. Emily. She was 11. She lived with Nathan and his wife Clara. When I saw her face on the screen, my heart tightened. "Grandpa?" "Hi, sweetheart. Are you angry with Dad?" I froze. "Why are you asking?" She shrugged. "He's always angry." "What does he say?" She looked around. "I'm not supposed to tell you." "Emily," she whispered. "He says we're going to be rich soon." I felt cold. "What else?" "He talks to a man named Marco a lot." "Where?" "In his office." "What do they talk about?" She looked down. "About you." "Exactly what did you hear?" "I heard the word insurance." I closed my eyes. "Emily, where's your mom?" "In the bedroom." "Does she know?" Emily nodded. "Mom cries." An hour later, I met Clara at a small cafe. She came alone. She sat across from me. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then, "I was afraid he'd find out I called you." "Does he know?" "No." "Clara, you need to tell me everything." She started crying. "Nathan changed." "When?" "After he started gambling." She told me the debts had been growing for months. Nathan began selling things, taking out loans, borrowing money. Then one day he said, "If Dad dies, Everything will be over. Clara thought he meant inheritance. Then she saw the insurance policy. She understood. I told him I wanted nothing to do with it. What did he do? He said that if I betrayed him, he'd take Emily away from me. I looked at her. Are you willing to testify? She was silent for a long time. Then she nodded. Yes. That same day, Kane contacted the district attorney. Clara was given protection. After that, investigators gained access to Nathan's computer. And then the real picture emerged. He hadn't planned it for a few days. Not a week. Almost 2 months. First, he hacked the law firm system. Deleted my real will. Uploaded the forged version. Then he sent an email pretending to be me. After that, he created a paper copy. Then he arranged the insurance policy. And several days before my birthday, he ordered the bottle. I asked the investigator, where did they get the poison? Through an intermediary. And the medication? Nathan had visited your house several times before. I remembered. 3 months earlier, he had come to see me. At the time, I had been happy. He said he simply wanted to see me. I led him in. We drank coffee. He asked where I kept my medication. I thought he was worried about my health. Now I understood. He had been studying my routine. He knew when I took my pills. He knew where they were. He knew when I was alone. He knew when I went to bed. I didn't want to believe that the person I had once carried in my arms could carefully plan my death. But the facts left no room for doubt. 2 days later, police obtained a warrant. I went with Kane to Seattle. It felt strange sitting in that car, knowing we were going to arrest my son. When we arrived at his house, SWAT vehicles were already outside. Kane said, "Stay here." I nodded. The door was breached. A few minutes later, Nathan was brought outside. He was wearing a gray sweatshirt. His hands were cuffed. He looked calm. Too calm. Clara stood in the doorway. Emily was beside her. When the girl saw her father, she broke free. "Dad!" She ran toward him. I managed to stop her. She buried her face against my chest. "Grandpa!" I held her. "It's okay. They're taking Dad?" I didn't know what to say. "He has to answer some questions," she cried. I stroked her hair. At that moment, Marco approached Kane. He handed him a flash drive. Kane looked at him. "What is this? A recording?" "What recording?" "A conversation between Nathan and the people he owed money to." The investigator played the file. We listened in the car. Nathan's voice was calm. Cold. "The old man won't drink it himself. He has a heart condition. So he'll take the pills." Another voice asked, "What if he notices?" "He won't." "And the bottle?" "A birthday gift. Who would suspect a gift from his own son?" My fists clenched. Then Nathan said, "If he doesn't drink it, someone else will. Michael." I closed my eyes. But the recording continued. "After that, there'll be the insurance, then the estate." Another man asked, "And if something goes wrong?" Nathan answered, "Then I'll say Dad made it all up." I stopped the recording. I didn't need to hear anything else. Kane looked at me. "Do you want to talk to him?" I nodded. In the interrogation room, Nathan sat at the table. When I entered, he looked up. For several seconds, we simply stared at each other. Then he smiled, not like a son, like a man still trying to win a game. "Hi, Dad." I sat across from him. "Why?" He shrugged. "Why what? Why did you try to kill me?" He was silent. "I didn't want to kill you." "Then what did you want?" "For everything to end." "For whom?" "For me." I looked at him. "You poisoned the bottle." He said nothing. "You switched my medication." Silence. "You forged my will." He looked at me. "I owed money, and because of that, you decided your father should die?" "You don't understand." "Explain it." "I was trapped." "You put yourself there." He slammed his hand against the table. "You always said that." I said nothing. He continued. "You don't understand what it's like to constantly feel like you're not good enough." I looked at him. "So you decided it would be better for me to die?" He looked away. I needed money. And Emily? He froze. What? Did you think about your daughter? For a second, his face changed. Only for a second. Then it became cold again. She'll be fine. I stood. No. He looked at me. What? She'll be fine because of the people who protected her, not because of you. I walked toward the door. He said, Dad. I stopped. Do you still love me? I didn't turn around. I loved the boy I carried on my shoulders. Silence. And part of me will always love him. I opened the door, but the man you've become has to answer for his choices. I walked out. The trial began several months later. The case received a great deal of attention. There was too much evidence. Michael survived. He testified. Clara told the court about the insurance policy. Marco confirmed the debts and handed over the recordings. Computer experts proved that the forged will had been created using Nathan's devices. Investigators recovered connection logs, deleted files, messages, proof of the bottle purchase, evidence concerning the medication. Each fact could have been explained away on its own, but all of them together formed one picture. Attempted murder, fraud, forgery, identity theft, conspiracy, attempted insurance fraud. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty. On all major counts. When the judge read the decision, Nathan looked at me. I didn't look away. He no longer looked like the boy I remembered, but for a second, I saw him anyway. A little boy. A scraped knee. A fish in his hands. A smile missing a front tooth. And I realized something terrible. Sometimes a person doesn't disappear from your life when they die. Sometimes they disappear gradually, with every decision, every lie, every betrayal, until one day you look at them and realize you no longer know the person standing in front of you. Nathan was sentenced to 27 years in prison. He would eventually become eligible for parole, but he would spend many years behind bars first. I didn't attend the final sentencing. There was nothing left for me to hear. I had already heard everything I needed to hear. A few months later, winter arrived. Emily started visiting me often. The first time, she brought a small backpack. Can I stay for the weekend? Of course. We made dinner, then watched old movies. One evening, she found a box of Linda's photographs in the closet. She sat on the floor, going through them. Grandpa? Yes? She held up a photograph. It showed Nathan at about 10 years old. Linda had her arm around him. I was standing beside them. All three of us were smiling. Emily asked, Was Dad happy? I looked at the photograph. Yes. Then why did he stop being happy? I thought for a long time. I didn't want to tell her about the debts, the poison, the insurance policy, the trial. She was a child. She didn't need to carry all of that. Sometimes people start making bad choices, I said. First a small one, then another. Eventually, it becomes difficult to stop. She nodded. But can they fix it? I looked at her. Sometimes. What about Dad? I sighed. I hope someday he wants to. She put her head on my shoulder. You won't leave me, will you? I turned toward her. Never. She smiled. That evening, we baked a pie using Linda's old recipe. I took out her recipe card. On it, Linda had written 2 cups of flour, 1 apple for every smile. Emily laughed. Is that a real measurement? No. Then how many apples? As many as you want. We sliced the apples, the kitchen filled with the smell of cinnamon. For a few minutes, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Home. Not walls, not furniture, not property. Home, because home isn't the place where a person dies. Home is the place where someone is still waiting for you. Late that night, Emily fell asleep on the couch. I covered her with a blanket. Then, I sat at the kitchen table. In front of me was my old police notebook. I opened to the last page. There were the notes from that terrible month. Gift. Will. Medication. Insurance. Nathan. I ran my finger over the words. Then I wrote one final line. I survived. I closed the notebook. For the first time in years, I didn't want to investigate anything else. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to go back to the past. I simply sat in silence and listened to the refrigerator humming. Linda's photograph hung on the wall. I looked at it. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't know exactly what I was apologizing for. For not being able to save our son? For believing in him too long? For not noticing what he was becoming? Probably all of it. I walked to the window. Snow was falling outside, quietly, slowly, covering the old tire tracks in the road, covering footprints, covering the dirt and old marks. And suddenly I thought there was a simple truth in that. The past doesn't disappear. Snow simply covers it. Then spring comes, and the ground becomes visible again, but by then you know where not to step. I returned to the table. A new photograph was hanging on the refrigerator. Emily and me. She was smiling. So was I. Not because everything was okay. Not because I had forgotten, but because life continued. Nathan had made his choice. Now he had to live with its consequences. Clara had begun a new life. Emily had the chance to grow up without fear. Michael had survived. And I was alive. Sometimes I think that's the most important thing. Not revenge, not money, not the house, not the inheritance, life. Because the person who tried to take it from you shouldn't get to decide what you do with the years you have left. I no longer checked my phone every morning. I no longer waited for Nathan's call. I no longer looked at the mailbox hoping to see his name. If he ever truly changed, that would be his choice. But I was no longer obligated to wait. I was obligated to live. For myself. For Linda's memory. And above all, for Emily. She wasn't responsible for what her father had done. She didn't have to inherit his mistakes. She should inherit something else. Not money, not property, not family wealth. But the ability to choose differently. And perhaps that's why I gave her one thing that had once belonged to Linda. The old recipe box. On the first card, Linda had written, "Family isn't the people who never hurt you. Family is the people who, after the pain, still try not to pass it on." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I put the card back. Snow continued falling outside. I turned off the light. And for the first time in a very long time, I went to sleep without fear. Without a weapon beside me. Without checking the locks every 10 minutes. Without wondering who might be standing outside the door. Because sometimes victory doesn't look the way we expect. It doesn't look like applause. It doesn't look like wealth. It doesn't look like revenge. Sometimes victory is simply waking up in the morning and realizing that you're still here, that you can open a window, make coffee, call someone you love, hug a child, and keep living, even after the person you trusted most tried to take that possibility away from you. I opened the old notebook one last time, turned to the final page, and wrote, "Investigation closed." Then I thought for a few seconds and added, "Life goes on." I closed the notebook. And this time, I actually put it away in the drawer. If this story taught me anything, it is this. Don't ignore your instincts simply because the source of the danger has a familiar name. Don't allow love to make you close your eyes to what is obvious. And never confuse trust with having no boundaries. I used to be a police officer. I spent my entire life learning how to recognize lies. But the hardest lie turned out to be the one I least wanted to see. The lie of my own son. And still, I refused to let his actions define the rest of my life. I cannot change the past. I cannot bring Linda back. I cannot turn Nathan back into the boy he once was. But I can protect Emily. I can preserve her childhood. I can show her that love doesn't mean allowing someone to destroy you, and I can choose life every single day. So if you're listening to this story and you recognize something from your own family, remember one simple thing. Sometimes someone you love can make a terrible choice. Sometimes you won't be able to stop them, but you can still stop their choice from destroying the rest of your life. Don't wait until it's too late. Pay attention to strange changes, unexpected gifts, unexplained documents, missing money, attempts to make you feel guilty for being cautious. And most importantly, talk to the people you love, not when the disaster has already happened. Before. Because sometimes one honest conversation can change a person's fate. And sometimes 3 years of silence can take someone somewhere they can never return from. I don't know what will happen to Nathan 10 years from now. I don't know whether he'll ever leave prison as a different man. And honestly, that is no longer my main concern. My concern is the girl who, every time she visits me, asks, "Grandpa, can I stay tonight?" And every time, I give her the same answer. Of course, because after everything that happened, I finally understood something. Sometimes family isn't the person who gave you life. Sometimes family is the person you help believe in life again. And if I'm meant to spend the rest of my years protecting Emily from the mistakes her father made, then I'm ready. Because during that terrible October, I almost lost everything. But I didn't lose the most important thing, myself. And the person who still needed me. That was enough. Everything else could stay in the past. The snow kept falling. Quietly, slowly, covering the old tracks. But this time, I wasn't afraid of spring. I knew that when the snow melted, the tracks would become visible again. And that's okay. Some things don't need to be erased. Some things need to be remembered, so they never happen again.